Hello and thank you for joining me. My name is Marcus Cage and this is Hebrew Apologetics. I have this episode titled Know Your History. And in order for us to really get a grasp on actually understanding anything is we got to actually understand our history. And a lot of different other nations and peoples, they can be able to trace theirs back, and it's only a handful of people who can't. A couple of nations of people who can't. And so when I hear those other nations say, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Why does it matter where you come from? Why does it matter any of this? Everything matters." And especially if you're a person of faith and you really read the Bible, the Lord, the Most High, Yahweh is his name if you don't know it. And in the Paleo Hebrew, it's Yahweh. He has actual enemies. And certain nations are enemies. And he also has a blessed and chosen group, the Israelites. Now, I figure that if we know the story of Jacob and Esau, if you don't know that story, we are going to go into that later on. But knowing that just whoever Esau is, whoever you believe Esau may or may not be, Esau is hated by God. And been hated by God since before the forming of the earth. It's not anything that's going to change, and there's nothing in Scripture that changes that. So, if we know that God hates one group of people in particular, and from what I've read, there's roughly about 7 enemies, because whoever are the enemies of his chosen people, they become enemies of him also. And so you need to understand, who do you trace back to? You might feel that you're not connected to your nation or race as a whole, but biblically, the way it's looked at is you are. And so, just like in the curses of Deuteronomy 28, when you start getting into those curses would be on those descendants for a sign and a wonder throughout their generations. That will go into more also, but when you start understanding these things, you got to figure out, okay, if these people are going to be blessed, I would want to know if I'm going to be one of the blessed people. Also, I would want to know if I'm one of the cursed people. I would want to know, what can I do, if there is something that I could do to either soften the judgment that's coming towards me, or, hate to use the words, but what could you do to escape that judgment? Now, part of it is those who bless Israel will be blessed. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that's salvation. That just means that you will be blessed. So, got to start figuring out all these things, especially if you're a believer in the Bible. But if you're not a believer in the Bible, I feel like these couple of videos which I have for you will still be very, very educational, because this is coming from the secular sense, because I want to be able to build out and let everybody actually understand real world facts and factors, movements, migration patterns, and then look at the Bible with a new lens, and then we'll start cutting into scriptures. But I wanted to first start off with Indo-Europeans, and so this is part 1 of the Indo-European series. I have, I believe, 5 videos so far that I'm working on, so this is part 1. Without further ado, hopefully you enjoy. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Lang Focus channel, and my name is Paul. Today we'll be going way back to see how we're all connected. Well, not all of us, but about half of us. Around 46% of the people on Earth speak an Indo-European language as their native language throughout Europe, South Asia, the Americas, and beyond. The Indo-European language family contains languages as diverse as English, Hindi, Persian, Russian, Armenian, and Greek, languages which on the surface may seem to have nothing in common, but they actually do. All Indo-European languages developed from Proto-Indo-European. According to the most widely accepted theory, Proto-Indo-European was spoken around 6,500 years ago on the Eurasian steppe of eastern Ukraine, southern Russia, and the Caucasus. The Indo-Europeans were the first, or among the first people to domesticate horses, which greatly increased their ability to travel and migrate. Over the following 3 millennia, Indo-European people migrated far and wide, conquering new lands on horseback and bringing their language with them, as it developed into different varieties, which eventually grew into different branches of the Indo-European language family. The Indo-Europeans first migrated into Europe, Anatolia, and Central Asia, then later into northern India and Iran, as migration continued deeper into Europe and Central Asia. There's an alternate theory, based more on archaeological evidence, that suggests that the Indo-European languages began in Anatolia several thousand years earlier and spread with the expansion of agriculture.
Funny, he's smart enough to understand all these complex languages, but he can't understand what he just said in the fact that there's archaeology that backs up that they come out of Africa. But okay, let's carry on.
There are no written records of Proto-Indo-European and its early offshoots, so the best we can do is to theorize and imagine. However they happened to take place, during these migrations, Proto-Indo-European split into numerous different languages, which would gradually develop into entire branches of the Indo-European language family. Those branches are Anatolian, which is now extinct, Tocharian, which is also extinct, Italic and Celtic, which may share a common Italo-Celtic ancestor, Armenian and Albanian, which each consist of just one language, as far as we know, Hellenic, Germanic, Balto-Slavic, which split into the Baltic and Slavic branches, and Indo-Iranian, which split into the Iranic and Indic branches. All of these branches and their individual languages have been developing in different regions with different influences for thousands of years, so they are now very different from each other. But through comparative study, we can see that Indo-European languages share a common word stock, as well as some phonetic and, historically speaking, some grammatical tendencies. There are a significant number of cognate words in Indo-European languages. By the way, the word cognate comes from Latin cognatus, which means born together. These words were indeed born together in Proto-Indo-European, and if we're aware of the sound changes that have taken place, we can identify cognates. For instance, the word meaning bear or carry. In Sanskrit, it's bahad. In Greek, it's per. In modern Greek, this might be pronounced like an F sound, but in ancient Greek, it was actually an aspirated P sound. In Latin, it's fer. In Gothic, it's baer. In Old English, it's bear. They all come from Proto-Indo-European baer. And my pronunciation of these different languages is probably not perfect, but I'm just giving it a shot myself. I should point out that the Proto-Indo-European words are theoretical reconstructions, and that there's no way of knowing for sure what they sounded like. But these words here are fairly recognizable. Some are a little less recognizable. In English, we have the word work, which comes from Old English, wirchand. In modern Greek, the word for work is ergo, which was ergon in ancient Greek. And in some texts, there was an alternate form, wergon. They both stem from the Proto-Indo-European word, wergon. Indo-European languages can be divided into 2 classes, the Kentum languages and the Sotum languages. Sotum is the word for 100 in Avestan, an ancient Iranian language. Kentum is the word for 100 in Latin. These 2 words illustrate a sound shift that occurred in Indo-European languages. Proto-Indo-European had a palatalized K sound that was distinct from the regular velar K sound. A palatalized consonant sounds kind of like it's followed by a Y sound, like K as opposed to K. In the Sotum languages, this palatalized sound remained a separate phoneme from K, and it became a sibilant sound, like a S or a Sh. So the Proto-Indo-European word for 100, kymtom, became shatam in Sanskrit, shimtas in Lithuanian, and in many Slavic languages it's sto. These words have all developed and diverged quite a bit, but if you're aware of the sound shift from a K sound to an S sound, you can recognize these cognates more easily. In the Kentum languages, the 2 K sounds merged together, or in the case of the Germanic branch, shifted to an H sound. So kymtom became kentum in Latin, and hekaton